So today I want to talk with you about this, which again, I still have this problem. I don't know how to help you read it when it is upside or backwards. So it says, what do you do when sex trafficking is going down at your local massage parlor? This is actually kind of common. Hey, I know a lot of people who have had this experience where they are going to their massage parlor or they're walking by massage parlors and they discover that sex trafficking is happening there or they're suspicious of it. This week, I was going to tell you about a phone call that I had with somebody about a situation they had with a local massage parlor. So when I used to live outside of DC, we would have this issue a lot. There's a lot of sex trafficking at different massage parlors, and it's kind of the same here in San Diego. I can kind of walk by a massage parlor and be like, yep, that one's definitely got sex trafficking going on it. And somebody recently asked me, they're like, well, how do you know? Like, how do you know that sex trafficking is happening there? Well, if you go to Polaris, and Polaris is honestly a location. They have a lot of good resources about a lot of articles about it, and who have been sex trafficked that come from spas and massage parlors. And so I highly encourage you to go check them out because they're really useful, and they have a lot more information and experience than I do. But some of the key signs are usually they're almost always Asian run. And I know a lot of, I was really good friends with an Asian immigrant who did nails and owned her own massage parlor slash nail salon, and her place is legit. But there's that dynamic, and usually there's like red lights. It looks kind of shady. There's like, curtains that look funky, and lots of times like they won't even let girls in. Sometimes they do, and the other stuff is just going on the back side of the store. So you can kind of tell by the vibe. That's not a guarantee, obviously, but it's kind of this idea of suspicion. There's websites online. I looked it up one time. I don't even remember the name of the website. I'm not sure I encourage you to do it, but I was like, oh my gosh, these two are massage parlors that are actually sex trafficking, and I didn't even realize it, that were in my local neighborhood in a hoity-toity town in suburban rich America. So anyways, I think that after a while of kind of working in the sex trafficking industry, you can kind of tell, get a vibe for like, okay, there's something going on there. And then there's some that you don't even know. Like there was this one spa that was renowned in the area that I lived in that was a nice spa where people would go, and it wasn't actually sex trafficking that was happening there, but it was labor trafficking. And eventually they got busted, and everybody was freaking out because they're like, oh my gosh, this is the nice spa that everybody goes to. But the people there didn't have their passports, and they weren't getting paid fair wages, and they were kind of in debt to their traffickers who had brought them there. And eventually somebody figured it out, and they were reported, and the place got shut down, and everybody was surprised. But usually the thing with the massage parlors that are actually sex trafficking brothels, essentially, is it is the same type of situation. Usually the people are brought from overseas, and they are paid. The debt is essentially they have money that they pay to get to the United States to get a job, or they are told that they're going to pay for it here, and then they get here and find out that they're actually doing sexual services at a massage parlor, probably with a little bit of massage put in, but I don't know. I've never been to one as a client, at least. So anyways, and their identification is taken away. They don't speak English or very little, and they're told that they can't go to the police, which is a very common form of trafficking in the United States, especially when it comes with immigrants. And a lot of people who are sex trafficked in the United States are not immigrants, but this dynamic of massage parlors are the majority like Korean or Chinese, and they're usually immigrants that are the ones there, and there's usually a madame up front who's running the business. So what I was going to tell you about is I got a call this week from somebody who wanted advice because they've been trying to shut down this sex trafficking massage parlor in their area. And I honestly did not want to do the phone call because I was like, well, what advice do I have for you? I don't really know. So eventually I got brave enough and I called them and we had an appointment and I talked with them. And, they really honestly did they did everything right. So their case was a little bit different though, because they knew for sure sex trafficking was happening there because their significant other was frequenting, and they found out that their significant other was frequenting there. And he, quote unquote, said he liked the young ones. And they made them go to the police and do a report. And I'm allowed to share this story, by the way. So I just thought I would throw that out there. They actually asked me to because they were hoping that maybe that would put more pressure on their district to do something about it. So this person lives in rural Minnesota, like far out, what I would consider far out in the boonies. I mean, I'm sure they don't. But it is, so this is happening in rural Minnesota. Actually, the town over ended up she had a conversation with somebody from the town over because the same thing was happening there. This sex trafficking massage parlor was trying to open up there. And they realized it and they knew that her significant other had been frequenting it because they made a police report. So in situations like this, ideally, the person, but they're not, depending on the region that you're in, they're not always prosecuted because sometimes Johns just aren't the demand. That's usually the best way to shut these things down because if nobody's going to go to it, they're not going to make money. However, that is a conversation for another time. How do you deal with the buyers? Regardless, the person that she was with was a buyer and she found out and she was not happy. And 8 months later, she's still trying to shut this place down because she knows for sure sex trafficking is happening there. She couldn't go in it herself because they wouldn't allow women in it. But there's a police report, there's a detective on the case, and she didn't really know what to do next. So my first thought and first step that I would tell anybody is to call the human trafficking hotline number. It's very easy to find. You can also text them with Be Free. And they are really, really resourceful. They're helpful for two different purposes. One of them is to report sex trafficking, and the other one is because they actually give you a lot of information and kind of help you work through whether sex trafficking is happening or not. So unless you are somebody who is actually being sex trafficked yourself, it is not very likely they'll be able to just magically form a case. So if you can get somebody who is being sex trafficked or labor trafficked to call in, they will pretty much immediately contact the people in their local police or detectives that are most likely are trained or who have done trafficking cases before and send them out there and they can get the person right away. It made me happy to find out that when she called the human trafficking hotline number and reported it, within 15 to 20 minutes, she got a phone call from the detective who she had not heard from again. And he called her back and was like, hey, these cases take a really long time. Just hold off, which means that he must have been contacted by them. And that was a good thing. That means that the system is kind of working. I've seen it work before. I've never used it since I've been in Southern California, although I've recommended it to people here. And again, you can't really fully 100% just say that this is going to work because you have some police that aren't trained in human trafficking. I've talked with police who don't even believe that sex trafficking is really a thing, which is unfortunate. Hopefully that's not always the case. And, you have other dynamics that can come into play. So this is what I told her. I was like, okay, so you did the job calling the human trafficking hotline number. They're able to start building a case with the information that you have. I've talked to them myself for different situations. So you get to start building a case. She already had a detective on this case, so she could contact them. But there's two reasons why the detective might not have been able to shut it down 8 months later. So one of them is that it could be part of a criminal syndicate, like, think mafia. I mean, I don't know if it's really mafia, but, some version of that where you're going to have the FBI involved and it's going to be a much larger thing. So that could be one reason why this case is taking a long time because they just don't have enough influence and ability to manage it, and they're still trying to figure out the bits of the case. Another reason is it's always possible there could be some corrupt police, maybe not that detective, but you could have other people, and that makes it difficult. Or you also could have people that just don't really think sex trafficking is that bad. She had that experience. She called, I think she said she called the county also, and they were like, well, you know, prostitutes have rights, which I kind of not in Minnesota because you're not really supposed to. And again, these women aren't prostitutes. They're being sex trafficked, so it's a little bit different. Are a lot bit different. So all to say, I think that there is that mindset, which is why creating awareness is so important, which is what we do with blackout trafficking every year. Every year after blackout trafficking recently, we've had people tell us that they've needed to give the hotline to somebody, or they've recognized that trafficking is happening in their area. So I highly recommend blackout trafficking if you don't know anything about it. It's an awareness and fundraising campaign sort of that we run, a 31-day challenge where we choose to wear one black item of clothing, like a scarf or a shirt or a tie, or dress, and we do that every single day, wear the same item every single day through the month of March, and we pretty much people start out not knowing anything about human trafficking, and throughout the month they learn about it as we kind of coach them on how to create basic awareness and understand it themselves and fundraise. And we connect with local organizations all around the world and help them out with fundraising, which is cool. Okay, so now that I've finished with my plug for blackout trafficking, when it goes back to the massage parlors, and shutting it down. So she really, and she also called the Attorney General, which is actually another really good study. And it's been 8 months and still things aren't happening. So these are my suggestions to her. First one is keep calling the hotline, because the hotline is still putting pressure on the detective, and generally when it comes to injustices, what you want to do is you want to have somebody higher up in power putting pressure on the person lower down. So this can work also if she ended up, she tried to call the county, which is higher up, but you can continue even going up the ladder. It's a little bit more difficult if you're an everyday person who is fighting against human trafficking, which is what we all are. We are everyday people that are trying to make a difference and live justly in the circles that we live in. So kudos to her for doing that. It works a lot. Sometimes it helps if you have an agency, which is why she said she called me, and I was like, I'm a consultant. I'm not an agency, really. But on the other hand, there is the dynamic of the more awareness that is raised and the more the public knows about it, the greater pressure that also puts on the situation. So, in rural Minnesota, it's not as likely that people are going to be thrilled that sex trafficking is happening at their massage parlor. So, you can write editorials. In an area where I live in San Diego, there are lots of, there's these same things that are happening in this area. Creating awareness, even for me, writing editorials is really helpful because people aren't aware of it at all and they don't know signs to recognize or what to look for. I have a friend who owns a massage parlor, and, one of the things that they do is they raise funds for sex trafficking organizations that are fighting sex trafficking, just trying to make a distinction because it's really good to make a stand. Or you can go into massage parlors or not sex trafficking, opposite of sex trafficking. You can go into massage parlors and spas and be like, hey, are you guys against this? What are your thoughts on this? If you're against it, will you put this up saying that you're against it, like a sign? And you can ask them to do that, and that's also another cue of whether something is going on there or not. So again, for women to be rescued or men who are being sex trafficked, usually they have to call in themselves. So another thing that I know other organizations have done is put up in an appropriate language, put up signs near sex trafficking, places where sex trafficking is happening, where those people might frequent it, and not signs that say, are you being trafficked? Because they're not going to self-identify as being trafficked. But you can ask other things on the sign. You can make one. They're on the internet too. Polaris probably has some. I'm pretty sure they do. But you want to say stuff like, do you have access to your passport? Do you have freedom of movement? Are you getting paid fair wages? If not, that is illegal in the United States, and we will help you call this number. Because if you can give them access to the number and they have the ability to call it and they're able to recognize that that's themselves, then they're able to get freedom. And somebody will come and help them, which is a wonderful thing. And it makes cases go so much quicker because detectives often, even if there's a report from from a John that is saying, yeah, I use people here. It's a totally different thing when you have somebody who is being sex trafficked, who is like, hey, I'm being sex trafficked, I need help now. And then they're able to make everything just go bam, bam, bam a lot quicker and shut things down, which is our goal. So what did I say so far? I said, okay, so hotline, putting pressure on higher up governmental areas, public awareness if you're having no success with that, creating public awareness and telling people that this is going on around you, including, you know, other parties and other places that might say something like, which is why I'm saying something about something going on in Minnesota to create awareness. It will help create awareness for her because she can share it with her friends and her knitting club, which is just awesome, by the way. She also participated in blackout trafficking with her knitting club, and I just love her for that. Who says that older people can't do amazing things to change the world? So kudos to you. If you know, because I'm sure at some point you'll watch this. So all to say, as I continue talking about this, those are some of the 3 things. A 4th thing would be to shut down these massage parlors or sex trafficking parlors, is to connect with other groups of people who are interested, because it's a lot easier to do this when you're not on your lonesome, and the more people you get involved, the better. So in my experience, written letters to churches and ask people, because you know their morals kind of go with the idea that sex trafficking isn't the best thing to be happening in your neighborhood, and having that compassion and care for justice for those who are victims. And so we've had success with that where churches have responded and sent people, and we've made a task force with that, where we've been in the area. Some of us believe that it's a spiritual battle too, and so if that's the case, in being involved in that way. So if you see that human trafficking or sex trafficking is happening at a massage parlor, those are some of the ways that you can combat it. And like I talked with the woman on her on our consulting call this week, you know, I feel like she has a plan now. She knows what to do next, and I'm really impressed with the audacity that she had to go as far as she did to shut down that massage sex trafficking parlor in Minnesota, rural Minnesota. Good job. So again, those things are, the first one is to call the hotline, the human trafficking hotline, or text them or email them. 2 would be to talk with government officials that might be higher up, like, you know, she already had contact with the detective, but going up higher if you can, that will put pressure on the lower. 3, creating public awareness for by editorials and whatever else, sharing things, talking about it, you know, bringing the public eye to it. The 4th thing would be to be putting up information or trying to get information to somebody who might be sex trafficked that you know is inside of the massage parlor. 5th, like, you know, those posters like nearby the massage parlor or of that sort that clearly indicates what is happening and how they can get help, so they can recognize themselves. 5th would be to go into massage parlors and ask them to put up a sign that says, we don't agree with sex trafficking, and that is why it's not happening here, because it helps. And then lastly is to connect with other people nearby you that might also be interested in creating a task force that can research the gaps in your area, help create public awareness, and just help you do all that stuff, because you can't do it on your own. And if you believe in prayer and the power of prayer, then do that too. So again, I hope that helps you guys know what to do if you know that sex trafficking is happening at your local massage parlor, which it very well might be, because I've seen it happening everywhere in the United States that I've been. All right. Hope that helps, guys. If you want more information on what to do about human trafficking, please download our free resources, 10 Simple Ways to Fight Human Trafficking. Join us for Blackout Trafficking in March. And if you're an organization, please talk with us about it, because we would love it for you to use it as a fundraising tool for you. And also, if you have any other questions about this, I'm happy to do more videos and research it and help you guys out to figure out your next step as you make a difference in the world. So I'm Elisa Johnston. I do this blog thing called Average Advocate, where I help ordinary people make a difference in the world and in their community, in their home. All right, bye. Yes.